What is up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be sharing 5 mistakes which I think beginner beatmakers make. Now these are pretty much based on my experience of being a beginner beatmaker, so that's where I've got the inspiration from for this video. Over the years on the channel I've answered a lot of questions for a lot of beginner beatmakers, so I'm hoping this video is a really good source of information for you. So before I start, I just wanted to mention about the photo prints that I've mentioned in my vlogs. If you've been following my vlogs you'll know all about these. I've decided I'm going to do some prints of the photos that have been taken while I'm out doing my vlogs. So I've had my first 25 prints and they've come out much better than I was expecting actually. I'm really happy with the quality. So here's one example. This is going to be the first one that's in the shop. I'm also going to be ordering prints of others now that I know that the quality is good. So yeah, I just need to source some frames. I actually had this one lying around and I really like the white borders. So I'm going to be looking for frames like this. So this is what you're going to get if you purchase one of those. So yeah, they're going to be in the store very soon, so look out for those. Okay, so let's get into the topic of this video. The first point that I want to raise is that I think when you're a beginner beatmaker, there tends to be a lack of actual recording of projects that happen. So I think this is a really important thing to do when you're starting out as a beatmaker, is set yourself some challenges to make, say, a 4 or 5 track tape, or maybe do a 10 track album and actually get that finished and get that in your archive. Now I think this is really important because it's a way of measuring progress. So finish as much stuff as you can, even if it's just 1 or 2 beats maybe you throw together on a little mini beat tape. Just try and be as productive as you can when you're starting out. I think it's a really good way, like I mentioned, of monitoring your progress, and when you listen back to your old recordings you'll easily start to hear the things that you've done wrong as you're progressing. So I think that's one point really which I haven't done enough. I really wish I'd have done more projects and actually got stuff down and recorded, and then I think I could have looked back and said to myself, that could have been a little bit better, I should have done more with that, etc, etc. So little projects like that are a really good benchmark of where you're up to as a beatmaker, so I definitely recommend doing those. Okay, the second thing which I want to mention, and I was guilty of this at first as well, is I see a lot of people in the comments on Instagram, on Twitter, asking for samples. Now, I think this is a bad way to get off to being a sample-based beatmaker. If that's what you want to do, if you don't want to compose your own tracks, if you want to sample music, you're not going to be able to become a good sampler through asking for samples. So instead of investing the time on leaving comments on videos, leaving comments on beats on Instagram and things like that, spend the time actually just listening to music. I think that's a really important thing to do. If you want to be a good sampler, you have to be listening to music all the time to find those little bits of tracks that are going to work for a beat for you. And that's definitely where you should be focusing your attention rather than trying to get handouts from people. Like I say, I've seen it a lot in my comment sections on YouTube. I've seen it on other Instagram profiles and all over the internet, people just wanting to get the sample of a track. I understand it. You want to be able to recreate that track because you like the sound of it, but it's much better to invest your time looking for your own samples. At first it's going to be really difficult because that's one of the main things I struggled with when I started making beats, was trying to find samples. Seems like such a chore, but you just have to set time aside when you want to listen to music and really kind of try and enjoy that process. And with the likes of Spotify and that kind of thing, you've got playlists. If you hear a track which you think can be sampled, throw it into a playlist and just build up that playlist as much as you can. Then you can sit down at a later date and try and make beats out of them all. That's a much better approach to sample-based beat making than asking for handouts, in my opinion. Okay, my next issue that I see a lot of beginner beat makers doing, and this is something that my channel can certainly help with, and that's not learning the gear that you have enough. Now in the early days I actually had an MPC Renaissance and I sold that to get an MPC 2500. The logic for that was because I didn't actually enjoy the fact that the Renaissance had to be plugged into a laptop all the time. I think that was really annoying. So I did kind of do it for the right reasons, but at the same time, I do wish I would have spent more time with that device. And to be honest, if I would have just stuck with that device until now, it would be really interesting to see what kind of beats I would have been making on it. So that's a topic I've already talked about in my vlogs recently as well, is not always trying to switch gear to make yourself a better beat maker. It's much better to stick with the gear that you've got and try and learn it as well as you can. You'll be amazed at the little things you can learn about devices from the manuals and from online videos, and that can really give you that inspiration to make some better beats and become a better beat maker. So if you are just starting out and say you're completely new to the sampling game, gear can definitely be really daunting, but just be patient, spend time with it, read the manual, and eventually you will get better. And yeah, just keep persevering with it, and this is going to set you up way better for when you gradually get better at making beats. You're going to know your gear really well, and it's going to be super fun and easy to lay down beats. Okay, the next mistake I see a lot of beginner beat makers doing is trying to emulate the sound of another artist. Now, this is really difficult to do at first because you kind of need an inspiration to be able to make beats in the first place. You kind of need to know what kind of sound you're creating. But I think my point with this really is don't put yourself in a box too early on. You want to be able to express yourself through beat making, and it's much better to have a unique style that can be recognized as you become a good beat maker, rather than just making the same beats as everyone else. Now, there's a huge kind of wave of this in the lo-fi world, I think. I'm certainly guilty of this as well. I make a lot of jazz-based beats and it's not particularly original, but they're just kind of fun to me. But I really wish I would have pushed myself to find a more unique sound earlier on, and then by this point, like I was mentioning with the Renaissance, if I would have stuck with that, if I would have stuck with creating an original sound, you know, who knows where I would have been by now. I could have been creating something really original that people were really into. So I think that's another really important tip, is don't be afraid to be original when you start getting to grips with making beats. Try and develop your own sound at an early stage and keep building on it, and eventually you'll have this really cool, unique sound that other people are bound to be into. So yeah, that's definitely something to consider when you're starting out. Okay, so the last tip that I want to share with you guys is that I feel that a lot of new beat makers aren't persistent enough. So beat making takes a long time to get good at. You're not just going to get good at it overnight unless you are an exception to the rule, which obviously those kind of people do exist, people that just pick up things really naturally. But for me, especially, beat making is a long journey. I don't feel like I'm anywhere near the level that I'd like to be at this point, and I'm just going to keep grinding and keep working away. The worst thing you can do is give up and just forget it, so just keep hanging in there. Like I say, keep making projects, keep making beats all the time, keep listening to music, and sometimes it's going to be a grind, and that's just one of those things, especially with being a creative person and doing creative things. It's not always going to be fun and enjoyable. On those days, I either just got to kind of try and do something else, like go for a walk and improve yourself, or try a different approach, try something completely different. But yeah, the underlying point here really is just keep going, keep grinding away, and eventually you will see improvement. So I hope that these tips help you out, guys. Being a beginner at anything really is a frustrating and can be quite a tedious part of the experience as well. But as long as you follow those tips and learn from those mistakes which I made, hopefully they'll make you a better beat maker a lot quicker than what you're progressing at the moment. So thanks very much for watching. If you're new around here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and a like on the video goes a long way as well. Leave a comment below, what would you recommend to beginner beat makers if you're not a beginner? And if you are a beginner, what are you struggling with? Leave a comment below as well, and I'll try and get to answering those questions for you. Keep making beats on whatever device it is that you've got, guys. I'll be back with more content very soon. Peace!